Welcome back to Anything Goes Fishing. Today we're going to talk about all the different ways you can rig senkos. Got all my senko rods in the house today. So we're going to talk about 3 different ways you can rig a senko. Wacky, Niko, and Texas. My favorite being Wacky. So we got my Wacky rod here. So I'm gonna pop my line. Alright, perfect. So first thing you're going to want to do is get yourself a Wacky hook. I use size 2s. I really like that hook for whatever reason, that size. So what you're going to do is you're just going to tie this to your line for demonstration purposes. I'm just going to tie this on. And in a future video I'll talk about all the knots that I use. I shouldn't say use, there's one knot that I have not tried yet, but I'm very excited to in the spring. But you'll hear all about that in that video. So, tie your favorite knot, whatever that may be. Mine's, I always use a clinch knot for this, which I'll show you in the other video, like I said. So, for Wacky rigging and or Niko rigging, there are 2 tools that I would say are a need. They are Wacky worm O-ring tools. I'm not sure what they're called. I just call them Wacky tools. So I got 2 different kinds of rings here. I got rings, have a little eyelet for the hook, and then just regular rings. So I will show you with both of them the same worm, about a 5-inch senko. So what you're going to want to do with this tool is you take your ring and you pop it up onto there, and then you put your worm down the tube, and you just slide this, and you have to hold this, position it, just make sure it gets to the middle, and it'll just pop off right onto the worm. And then all you need to do is just, you can move it a little bit to get to center. And what you do is you just take your hook, and I always bend the worm in half like this. Don't know why, I just always have. And you'll just take your hook and get it between the worm and the ring. So that's gonna hang nice for you. It's got lots of like movement and freedom off the hook, rather than if I hooked it like this. If I would just went right through the middle of the bait. A little bit less freedom there. As well as you're gonna lose your senko almost every fish, which is not it's not good for day of fishing where they're really biting. You're gonna go through your senkos pretty quick, and it's not good to lose a bunch of these in the bottom of the lake. So because I've done both in one weekend. I remember the one day we went to Clarny, and I was fishing, and I had a pack of 11 senkos, and I was fishing without a ring, and I lost all of them in 10 fish. And then I had 2 worms, or I lost 10, I guess I shouldn't say all of them. I had 2 worms left, and I grabbed an O-ring, which I had stashed in my tackle box, and I put it on. Those last 2 worms lasted me for about 20 more fish each worm. So it was like about 10 fish a worm, which is pretty cool. So that's when I started, and I bought the tools obviously, and I have not used an O-ring on a senko since. So then you another way to do it is with this O-ring with the little hook thing. So it's the same thing, it goes on the same. The only difference is once it's on the bait, you take your hook, which I have right here, your hook, and you put it through. You can see there's a little hole there. Put your hook through that, and then it's even further away from your lure, and you're probably even less likely to lose your bait. And then your hook's sitting just like it would if you hooked it through the bait. So when the fish grabs it like this, gets hooks. That's the only thing that I find I like about this O-ring is the hook. Instead of having the hook sideways like this, it's actually forward. So just a little better hookup, a little bit more freedom, and a little bit less likely to lose your senko. Because sometimes when you're doing it like between the O-ring and the worm, you can damage the worm a bit, and I find sometimes the worm will just break right in half with that little bit of tear in it. So now, since we got it all Wacky rigged here, I can show you how to do a Niko rig, which is very similar to Wacky, only you take a little nail weight. What you're going to want to do, you find the flat part end of your worm. If it doesn't have one, you can make one. Doesn't really matter. And what you're going to do is you're going to put the point of this into the center of the worm, and you're just going to push it in. And this will just peg itself. The bottom. Yeah. Just put that in. And now your worm has a weight in the end. So when this worm hits the bottom, now if I was to do it like this, I would not use, see how I got it in this one? Since they're both in, I would not use this for a niko rig, this kind of ring. I would use the normal ring, and I would do it just like this. Just because of how where it puts my hook point versus, so it's just facing with the worm because the fish can eat it like this most likely. So now your niko rig is just going to sit on the bottom, and you're just going to pull it along like this. And that's your niko rig, so it'll stand up, which is another great way to catch fish, as well as wacky. Now we're going to talk about Texas rigging though. So, I got a Texas rig hook here. Here's my favorite Texas rig wide gap hook. So, you're going to grab another sanko here. What you're going to want to do is, let's pretend this has got fishing line on it. So, when your first step's coming up, you take that flat end again. And I always measure how much I need to go into the weight. Now for me, I always like to put it further than I need to by putting it way over past the eye of the hook. That's just me. You don't have to do that, but so yeah, I'll measure it and I will set it. My thumb, I'll pinch it, find the middle of it, get the hook started, pull it out, and you just got that little bit. Slide it all the way to the front. Pop it around. You're going to slide it up over the eye of the hook. Your fishing line will be coming in this end, pretending. And then see how it's just covering that flat spot. And I find on the 5-inch senkos, it lines up. You look at the worm here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera. But there's a little flat spot that's about an inch or just under an inch long. And it's just smooth. The rest of the worm is bumpy, like a real worm would be. But it's just got that flat spot. And I find the back where the flat meets the rings again, towards the back of the worm, lines up perfectly with the back of the hook, like where right here, which is where you're lining it up. So I've seen, and I've done it myself too, when I first started, I had made the mistake of I'd line it up with the point of the hook, and then I'd tear the worm because there wouldn't be enough. I'd line it up there. You need to line where your hook goes through back here. So I always like to give it a little bit of extra room too, like not much, like maybe a ring or two on the sanko. So then you just take it, you pinch it, put it through, put it straight through. You want to make sure it goes straight. Pull it out through, and now you got this. So what you're going to want to do is pull that up. And the reason I give it extra is so I can pull this forward and embed the point of that hook. As you can see, I'll put it. Now that makes it weedless. Not 100% weedless, but fairly. This is about 90% weedless. That's what I would say. And now I really like fishing Texas rigged senkos. I'll fish them around boulders in deeper water, kind of bounce them off the boulders, no weight. You can put like a bullet weight. I think I have some in this box. Maybe I don't. I do. Oh, yes, I do. So you can take a bullet weight and you can put this on your line first, and it'll just sit there. You can peg it or not peg it, like with a bobber stop. I'll show you that in another video if you guys would like. Just leave a comment. And you can fish it like that too. It'll kind of hop along the bottom. You can also use a heavier bullet weight and you can flip with it. But I like to fish it weightless. My favorite place to fish it is the pencil reeds. And then probably boulders, and then I'll occasionally use it for a follow-up for like a frog if you get a blow up and it doesn't get it, which happens I find a lot frog fishing. Could just be me, but you never know. But yeah, that's how I rig up my senkos 3 different ways: Niko, Texas, and Wacky. That's how I do it. There's a few other ways you can do it. You can play around, see what you like. Now I do want to mention the Texas rig. This works for like creature baits, like that's a very large tube, but like tubes and stuff. You can use it on tubes. I don't have any other creature baits, but like craws too as well. Yeah, here's a tube. I did do a video on that, on how to do that a few years ago. You can go back and watch that one if you want. I talk about how to rig swim baits and tubes, very similar to Texas rig Senko. But yeah, remember, and always remember, when you're fishing, anything goes.